And chill here and wait for people to get here. We'll see what's poppin'. But this is a very interesting day, hands down. My word is a oh, I'm gonna wave at Jackie. The word of the week is on, which is it's a funny one. It's an important one, but in English it seems funny because it just looks like our word on, but it's not on. It's on, which saying stuff in French is funny, but at the same time, it's on, and then we can also talk a lot about George Floyd in my article and all of that. So I think I'll just kind of start and talk about the word of the week. On is a really important word. It's very subtle though. It's one of those words that if you are a native French speaker or just someone that knows French, you say it so often that you don't really think of how profound the word is. But it's very significant because it's a word that's singular and plural at the same time. It means one, it means we, it means us, it means everyone, and you use it as a plural, but you conjugate it as if it's a singular. So it's this word that we don't really have in English to the same degree. But when you use it in French, it really makes you think in a very subtle, just organic, natural way, just how connected you are to other people. Where you are one, but also we are one. And I just think about how significant that would be if you just said that all the time. Like if in your language there was a word that embraced this duality, and you just said it, a countless amount of times every single day. And so when I first thought of this word for the word of the week, I thought about it in relation to to Corona. And the necessity of realizing that we are one as we are apart, because I think it gives you a greater sense of responsibility about making sure you do the right thing, that you're smart, that you wear your protective gear, that you wash your hands, all of those things. I think this word reinforces the importance of that. But then George Floyd was murdered, and I thought about a really common phrase that in French that you use with on, and that's on y va, and that means we go there, but the va is conjugated as if it's a singular. Va is for the verb aller, which means to go, and so the plural would be nous y allons, and allons is the plural for aller. And so va is a singular, so we go there is conjugated as if it's a singular, but it's a plural. And I thought about that a lot with regards to George Floyd, because he's one person who was tragically killed too soon, and the victims of police brutality who became the faces of Black Lives Matter, they're also individuals who were taken too soon and murdered by the police. But the protest and the fear and the terror that connects everybody, and the empathy that connects everybody and inclines people to go out into the street is indicative of us being of them being more than just an individual person who's disconnected. And on y va helps linguistically recognize that connection. And so saying we go there, in many ways it's we're going to a better place, or we're going to the streets, we're going there to protest, we're going there to stand up for our rights. It's very profound to say it in that way, where it's the singular and the plural all at the same time. And so I thought about that a lot. And a big thing at SCL is we have this thing we call our philosophy and action framework, where we believe that philosophy comes first, and then after that you have art and language to help manifest that philosophy in a way that people can digest and understand. And then once they can do that, then they can act on it, and we believe that the action becomes more reliable and sustainable when there's a strong philosophical foundation. And as I thought about on y va, I really thought about how that phrase is kind of like our framework, where there's a philosophy at its core, which is the word on, that symbolizes that, we are one, that the individual and the collective are together. And then you articulate that all the time, and that becomes like the expression of your culture. And so there's the idea of it, which is the philosophy, and then there's the word of it, which is the language and the art. And then when we say on y va, it makes it an action. You're using that philosophy, you're using that language to act in a collective way. And I just thought that was really powerful. And so that's the word of the week. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, Jackie, let me know. Okay. So here's the question. You initially thought of all in relation to COVID, but when there are protests happening, how do we get people to be active instead of complacent, silent, and by themselves? Well, I think being complacent is a lot of times connected to feeling that you are by yourself, that your actions don't extend beyond you. You can be complacent and indifferent if you think it's easy to be complacent and indifferent if you don't think you're connected to anything, if you just think you are all by yourself. It's very easy that if you have that belief to think that you just don't matter and that your actions don't matter and nothing matters. And so I think linguistically, injecting words that remind people that they aren't just by themselves, I think that helps incline people to be active. Like just the amount of stuff that you do at a casual level because it'll be beneficial to somebody else that you feel connected to is key. My partner will ask me to do something that I am not excited about. Could be something as trivial as like dishes or something, but I'll do them because I'm part of a team, I'm part of a unit. It's a collective. It makes sense for me to believe that my actions matter because she'll need me to do something. But if I convince myself that I'm all alone and that it doesn't matter if she needs me to do something, then I can very easily convince myself to not do anything at all and just like sit on the couch and be indifferent and totally complacent. And that's easy to do if you can convince yourself that you're all by yourself. But therefore you need reminders to remind yourself that you're part of a team, part of a collective, part of something that's not just you as an individual. And so I think that's how you do it. And I think the word "all" kind of subtly reinforces that. And I think making it like subtle and simple is almost more profound because it inclines you to say it all the time. It becomes just like a regular word. It's just very fascinating. And we just don't have a real parallel in American English. Like you can say one, Like one does this, one does that, and that's like a collective one. But you don't really use that one as in we. You use that one more as like a merging between he, she, and they. But no one, no one would say one goes there really, and or like one should go there and refer to the collective group of people that they're with. If I'm hanging out with my friends and we was like, let's go to the movies, we wouldn't say one should go to the movies. That just doesn't translate in English, but it does in French, and I think that's really profound. Yeah. So, any other questions, Jackie? Okay. Oh, let's see. Oof. I think we could, but I think the phrase "on y va" might have more uh, weight in French. On is kind of hard to say, and it's so similar to the word on that it'd be hard to differentiate. It'd be hard to differentiate, but I do like the idea of trying to figure out how to adapt it, and maybe like the phrase "on y va" could be a phrase that we use, and not just not just "on." Maybe "on y va" could be adopted, because then that shows that's and also, like, when you think about it, like, Americans just really like action. They really like something that has action related to it, and so "on y va" is an action. We are going someplace. We are let's go. Let's do something, and I think that probably relates more to like the American mindset. But the word on its own, I think it might be hard to convince people or to get people to distinguish it between our own English word "on." But "on y va," I think that could definitely, I think that has the potential to stick. But the concept of thinking about the duality is, oh, cool. Sam joined, dope. Um, so yeah, the word "on." So anyone that joins, feel free to ask any questions. It's about the word. And so yeah, thanks, Jackie. Yeah, like, I could see myself saying "on y va." Like, that's a phrase that sounds cool. Like, one of the big things about language, and it's kind of funny. Like, a lot of the words that I pick for the word are like French and Germanic, and like the Germanic words are kind of like the baseline English words, and so I think those words kind of resonate more naturally with English. French words are like the fancy kind of English words that I don't think they resonate as much. I think maybe like the phrases might resonate more than the words, and so kind of figuring out that balance. But like the word Geist, I think people are going to probably want to use Geist a bit more once they get familiar with it. I think that sounds more English than "on." "On" doesn't click, but "on y va," that's something new. I think that could stick. But yes, Sam, if you have any questions, feel free to just like drop them in the chat, and I can answer those. But to kind of let's see, another question. But I do wish we could have a standalone word that we can use in different sentences. Yeah, no, I really would like it, and I think it could be how we modify how we use the word "one." Like, maybe that could be one of the ways that it changes a little bit, but it's a tough one. It's really tough. Like, I like "on," and I think it has the potential, but like, so I listen to a lot of French rap just to kind of like try to keep my French alert, and like there was this one song by Mr. V. He's a very popular French rapper, and the song is "On y est," and that is like on with the Y, and the Y in French means like there. So, and then est is R, and so like we are there. That's on y, like so on e maybe could be that like we, you know, maybe on e could be the thing where it's the two words like we and there, like we are going there, we are there, something like that. But it's definitely something to start exploring, because the key thing is we don't linguistically have a word that makes us naturally think about how we are connected at an individual and a collective level. And reinforcing that philosophy, that reality, is a key thing for language. And with the US, our narrative has been forever that it's all about individualism. We're all individuals. We all are doing what we want to do at an individual level, and if everybody does what they think is right for them, then it'll be good for everybody, because we'll all be doing the thing that's right. That's right. And it's like, that's just the dumbest idea ever. But that's a philosophy that we've had for a long, long time. We've created a lot of words to reinforce this really stupid idea. And we now have to counter that by injecting, either by finding words in other places or making words to counter that toxic narrative. And all is one template, one mode, but it may not be the only one. I just studied French as a kid, and so this one stuck with me. And I think, and I really think on y va, especially with George Floyd, it's like, with French as a culture, it's really interesting how much like the revolution still shapes the people. There's like a revolutionary spirit with French people, because even after they had the revolution, the first attempt at a government they had wasn't successful. So they had like a series of revolutions and governments and stuff like that from the French Revolution. So there's like a revolutionary spirit in the people. And so on y va is definitely like, there's some force in it. Even though you can casually, you say it casually, it's on y va, just blah, but it can be something revolutionary. And so I think the phrase could be significant. But yeah, so that's that. And if anyone has any questions for me specifically about George Floyd in my article for the Daily Beast that went out this week, feel free to ask that. We don't just have to talk about the word. But yeah. Do I know if using this collective thinking word manifests a better sense of unity in France? So, like, I would speculate, like, you can't, like, definitively know that, but I would speculate, yeah. Like, I remember when I was a kid, maybe this was in high school, I forget, there was a French protest, and I think the protest was about raising the national age for retirement to, like, I don't know, it's like 63 to 65 or something like that. And I remember seeing teenagers and kids in the street protesting against raising the national age for retirement. And that blew my mind. Like, these kids had these signs up that, like, if you're making saying stuff like, if my grandmother has to work more now, how much will I have to work in the future? And that was just incredible. Like, I didn't think Americans would be protesting in a similar way to that. We would expect old people to do that protest. The people who would individually impacted right now would be the people that would be outraged. But over there, so many different people were outraged, and I that really stuck with me. And I think they definitely have a language, and it's clearly not just one word. It's a whole bunch, and they have a culture that's not based on division and ethnocide like America, so it's different. But that narrative, that collective identity, was just something that's much stronger over there, and I think it's much stronger in like a lot of other countries too. America just doesn't have it, and I think our language represents this profound deficiency. So like it's not necessarily that France is exceptional compared to other places, but I'm just exposed to that language more than other languages, and this word stuck out with me. So I think France has a better sense of unity than the U.S., but other countries in Europe or other countries around the world very much so have, I would assume, similar senses of unity. So yeah, but if there's any more questions, I can answer those. But if not, have everyone have a good weekend, and yeah. Any more questions, Jackie? Oh, yeah, sure. I'll talk about my article. Sorry, I should probably do that. So my article is, honestly, it's a very significant article. I'm not gonna lie. The article is for the Daily Beast. It's called "I Can't Breathe" is the new national anthem. Here's how we change that, and it's about George Floyd. But the key part about it is I finally was able to describe George Floyd's death as part of the ethnocidal structure of American society, where ethnocide, the destruction of culture while keeping the people, is the systematic problem that has killed George Floyd. It's killed millions of black people and continues to oppress, people of color to this day. And so one thing I've noticed as America, the tension rises and things get worse, is we don't have the language to really articulate the problem of our society. We have language that's close. We'll talk about race, we'll talk about white supremacy, we'll talk about this. But our notions of race derive from intentional cultural structures that colonizers tried to create. So there's an identity, there's a culture that precedes these racial divisions. Like talking about race is more like highlighting problems, but it's not diagnosing the actual core problem. And so this piece with George Floyd was key because I described it via ethnocide. So, for example, one analogy, one comparison I make is from the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. Not we as in me, but like America was was crushing African culture. They were preventing African people from practicing their religion, speaking their languages. They were forcibly removing them from their homes. They were doing everything to dismantle the culture of these people so that they could be like culturalist masses of people that could be funneled into a continental chattel slavery system. And that is ethnocide. And from the very beginning of that journey, as enslaved people were stacked on top of each other and packed into the hulls of slave ships, they were crying for breath. They were crying for the capacity to live and breathe. And white colonizers back then didn't listen to their cries at all. They didn't care. They would die, and if they died, they'd get thrown into the ocean. And those cries for help, those cries for breath, we as black people still make them today, and our society still finds a way to justify ignoring those cries. And America does that to sustain our division, that division exists so that black people and other communities of color can be oppressed and exploited in perpetuity. And like that's just the social fabric of our society. That was the fabric that was forged at the very beginning, and white ethnocidal Americans have worked to sustain that division from then to the present. And right now, the protesters in the street are clearly trying to break ethnocidal division. They're trying to shatter ethnocide and create what we at SCL would call evtopian society, an evtopian space. And evtopia just means good place, but when you look at ethnocide and how exploitative and unstable it is and just toxic, the only adequate word for that would be dystopian. So it's a dystopian environment that we live in now, and so we need to counter that by making an evtopian one. And another key part of this line of thinking, and I didn't express this in the article. Um, yeah, sure. Okay. Hey, Adam, you want to be in the oh, okay, waiting for Adam. So Adam's going to be in the video. That's cool. It's connecting.
Hey,
What's up,
Barry, how's
Adam?
it, buddy?
Hey, what's up? You got a question?
No, just to try and join you here. I think definitely like with the word of the day, I definitely connect with that. I think especially what's going on right now, I think that it's so fascinating that given that it's French as well too, it break away from sort of the Greek language, but it fits so well, with what was going on right now. But the question I have for you, that I suppose then is like, you know, given what's going on right now, right? How do you envision like ethnocide and Ethiopia sort of being in the mainstream? How would people sort of pick up that? Because people are protesting right now, right? But
Right.
how would they sort of use that on place cards, on like signs to like put them up and like let people know this is what is going on, and this is the language that names exactly what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So what I'd say is like in any revolution, there's always a struggle and for the language because it's an emotional expression most of the time. Like people are fed up with that abuse and they just have to like rebel. But
Yeah,
you then have to have the language for clearly articulating what you're rebelling from so that people can join you and
yeah.
also articulate for like what you're trying to create. It can't just be like an outpouring of emotional expression. It has to be more than that. And so, like right now, I'm trying my best to get my language out there, and this has really been less than a week of the this radical change in our society.
How
But
long do you think this is going to go for, though?
ooh, I think this could go for a while.
Yeah,
Like,
I think so too.
yeah, because well, just think about it. Like the people that are protesting right now, like they know it's the middle of a pandemic, so and that gathering in large spaces, they could get coronavirus. Like
Yeah,
they're still willing to do that, and
and we about to go out right now ourselves as well because we can't
huh,
sit in. You know?
yeah. So like there are people, lots of people that are willing to expose themselves to a deadly disease to stand up. So I don't think the deterrence of the police or the deterrence of the administration will have the weight that they would have had 2, 3, 5, 6 years ago. And so due to that, I feel that people are going to keep on coming out. I think it could even manifest in like in kind of waves because there's going to be this protest right now, and then clearly people are going to get corona. That's just going to happen, and then there could be a lull. Then you could actually see how this can like impact our infrastructure regarding the employment, regarding the economy, regarding if hospitals can adequately cope with this new wave of people getting sick, and then that will further exacerbate like the ineptness of our administration, make people even more outraged, more upset, give people another reason to go back out to the street. And then at the same time, there's no concept that this police violence towards African Americans is going to stop. You know, like
Yeah.
like this, all of the things that have been happening leading up to this, they're systemic, and like the system hasn't changed. So there could be another flashpoint that happens in the next couple weeks, and if Donald Trump keeps on talking, he's going to outrage people even more. So I really think that this could go for quite a while. Like
And
it
the
could
thing that the thing
weeks.
that's crazy for me, I think, right now is just that like to your point of like them being more coronavirus outbreaks, right? For example, people contacting this stuff. Like the people who are going to contact it, right, are the black and brown people who are already protesting. At the
Hmm.
same time, with all the inequalities already existing around coronavirus as well, right, you're going to see a lot more inequities, a lot more inequalities in terms of the healthcare system as well, and so I think that it just further deepens the demands that we are making right now, you know.
Exactly. And and I didn't mean to interrupt, but if as like it's like it's a complex narrative if you don't have the language of ethnocide. Like if we're talking about protest on the street, and then we're talking about corona and the inequalities of our healthcare system, it's going to be really easy to articulate these things as if they're two different things that are interconnected, you know? But what they are two things that are part of one thing, that's ethnocide. And so I think the language of ethnocide has a capacity to stick, to galvanize people during this time, to make people really aware of what they're fighting. And like one thing that I think is really key is a lot of white people are pretty outraged about everything that's happening. I think this is the tipping point for a lot of white people. Like
I think I could counteract that though, however, because yeah, I was out yesterday protesting,
uh-huh.
and we're going out again today as well. And it's so fascinating. Like, yes, white people are out there protesting right now, but at the same time, not a whole lot of white people. The majority, America's majority of white people, right? Like they are at their homes. They were in restaurants yesterday. We were walking past restaurants. They were lounging out. They were eating in restaurants. White people were protesting past them. We were honking horns. We were shouting and stuff like that. But they just seem nonchalant. You
Right.
know, People definitely like social media because before, right, if you think about social media, the civil rights movement, right, like there wasn't social media to really amplify the voices of people all over the world. Like you could see this all over the world through social media, right? Like what's happening in America, you could see that in London. You can see that it's actually happening in London, right? People actually protesting in London right now, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But at the same time, I feel like the majority of people, or white people, I should say, are still very much in their idea that they don't get the language, they don't get the demands, they don't understand because of the white privilege, because of the white supremacy ideas. Like they have been born with this since they were babies. And
Right.
so for them to understand what we're trying to do, we're trying to have a demand for just us to breathe. That's just for the request for us to breathe and to move in a space and exist in a space freely without being fearful for our lives. They don't get
Right.
that because they're not in that. And
Right.
so I just want to counteract that idea that like white people are out there. Definitely are out there, are allies. Yes. And it actually was very fascinating yesterday though, right? Because during the protest, when we got to like a police checkpoint at the White House, right? We were calling for white allies, like white people go to the front. White people go to the front, sort of be a shield,
Huh?
for the black people behind us, behind them,
Right.
right? And that in itself is privilege. That in itself is white privilege. That in itself is white supremacy, being that the police would not want to hurt white people. They would not want to do anything against white people, but they would do
Right.
that to black people. And as such, like even the amount of black people, white people who were out there yesterday, which wasn't a lot, right, compared to the like hundreds of black people out there, right?
Uh-huh.
And this city is made up of predominantly almost half and half now, given as DC, right? DC is, black chocolate, used to be chocolate city, but now
Right.
it's like half and half.
Uh-huh.
And so the white people who were out there yesterday, I would say that there were not a lot of white people out there. And
Right.
right now, the ones who are out there, probably the one most people who are more liberal, and a lot
So,
goes into that as well too. But I just
so
want to
one
just
thing,
say,
yeah, no, so I don't disagree with that. I'm not in any way saying that like white people are leading the charge or even close to that. Like that's no, not at all. But one thing I am noticing is that on social media, like the white people that I know, this death has been like really hit home in them. And a lot of white people just honestly don't feel like they know what to do. Like they don't know how to be helpful. But plenty of times they didn't want to be helpful. They thought that they already were, and that they're good, and da da da. You know, they had, but now it's like I question everything I've thought. I need now have to figure out how to be good at something to help people, and I don't know how to do it. I think that's a
Well,
rather
yeah, so
new.
many resources out there,
And so
right?
so here's the key thing. So the key thing is like the language. Like, and I think the language of ethnocide is significant because what it does is it's not talking to people about via race. It's via culture. It's like you are part of an ethnocidal culture, therefore you do ethnocidal things because that's what you've been taught. But if you know that it's the cultural problem is ethnocide, and that you don't want to be a part of that, and that people are fighting against ethnocide, then it creates a language for unity across racial divisions and towards forging like a cultural connection. And so like I think there's a greater amount of white people who would like to know how to be helpful that are just not confident that they know how to do it right now, and there's a need to develop the language to assist in that partnership because just the story you told about saying white people get it into the front, like that's not a common thing. Like that's not something that was the norm during like the civil rights movement, you know? Like black
Yeah.
people were always in the front. Like that might be like ideally it might we would like that for there to be more white people in the rally, more white people there. But of the amount of white people that are there, if they're willing to get into the front to dare the police to harm white people and they're there to protect like the mass of black people that are behind them, but that's actually like a massive amount of progress in
It
comparison to
is.
what
It
the
is
American norm.
definitely.
And so
Yeah.
like that's progress that can be built upon. The key thing to for building that is to ensure that there is a philosophy and a language that allows people to like unify for an extended period of time because you can't if it's all just like an emotional connection. It's kind of like a good example would just be like a relationship. Like there are definitely times where you like will meet someone and you'll have like a very strong emotional bond. Oh man, am I freezing? What's happening?
No,
No,
you're good.
Adam. Oh, it's Adam. It's
Actually, I
like
get the reason. Yeah.
it, and so there'll be people that you'll meet that you'll have like a very strong emotional bond, and that'll be great. And that can work for a certain amount of time. But if you want to stay around that person for a very long period of time, you got to create a philosophical connection, like a linguistic, philosophical connection that justifies being around that person, even if you aren't in the mood for that day or for that week or something, you know? It gives you also the hope that they can come back to the philosophical connection and that the emotional part comes back. You have to do that. And so I think using the language of SCL to give people a philosophical foundation, I think is key. Um, but yeah, so yeah, we are talking about George Floyd. We're talking about the language of SCL, and we're also talking the word of the week, which is on, and a phrase that comes with it. It's on y va, and it's a French phrase that means let's go. But it's a profound phrase because on that word combines the individual and the collective in one word, which I think is a very profound thing that's lacking in American English. But but yeah, if no one has any questions or comments, then we can wrap up this week's one. But I've really appreciated everyone tuning in, asking questions, and yeah, so I think I'll call it a day for this, and everyone have a good rest of your day. Talk to you later.